We don't always notice the moment a family decides who belongs at the center of the room. Sometimes it's already decided before anyone arrives. We noticed it here because the room was full, and one person kept standing just outside the current of attention. Her name is Dr. Eleanor Wright, and this night mattered not because of what she would reveal, but because of how long she had learned to stay quiet. This is how she remembers it. I arrived early, mostly out of habit. Maddie hates being rushed, and my parents hate waiting, so early felt safer. The waterfront venue in Annapolis smelled faintly of polished wood and wine that had already been poured. People were laughing too loudly, the way they do when they know they're supposed to be having a good time. Maddie was already glowing. That was the word people used. Glowing. Her engagement ring caught the light every time she lifted her hand, which was often. Someone asked how he proposed. She told the story again. My mother leaned in like she hadn't heard it before. My father smiled, relaxed in a way he rarely was. I stood near the bar with a glass of red wine I hadn't really wanted. I nodded when someone passed. I smiled when someone congratulated me by mistake and then corrected themselves. That happens more than you'd think. Patricia was talking about the venue, how charming it was, how perfect for Maddie. Richard asked the fiancé about work, about plans, about timelines. Everything moved smoothly around me. I wasn't pushed out. I just wasn't pulled in. I told myself I was fine with that. I had been fine with it for years. At one point, Maddie glanced over and caught my eye. She smiled, the practiced kind. The smile that said, "You're here. Good. Stay there." That was when I felt it. Not anger. Something quieter. The familiar understanding that tonight, like most nights, wasn't about me. It never had been. Then the room shifted. Someone laughed near the entrance. A voice I knew better than most. Uncle Tom, apologizing for being late, his jacket still on. His presence changing the temperature without him trying to. He hugged Maddie, congratulated her. He greeted my parents, and then he saw me. "Ellie," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt real. "I was hoping you'd make it." I smiled, surprised by how much relief came with being seen. He stepped back, still holding my shoulders, and said, casually, like it was nothing, "How's life in Tacoma Park, that old colonial you renovated, still loving it?" The sound dropped out of the room. Someone nearby cleared a throat. My mother froze mid-sip. My father's brow creased, confused. Maddie's hand stilled, the ring catching the light one last time before everything went quiet. There are moments when the truth doesn't arrive loudly. It just stands there, waiting to be acknowledged. We saw that pause for what it was. I took a slow breath. "Yeah," I said. "I still love it. If this story resonates with you, you're not alone. Sometimes staying with it is enough." No one spoke right away. It wasn't dramatic, just a delay that stretched a little too long. My mother lowered her glass without drinking. My father looked at Uncle Tom, then at me, like he was waiting for someone to laugh and clear it up. Maddie blinked once, then smiled again. A quick reset. "That's funny," she said. A light laugh. "Eleanor doesn't live in Tacoma Park. She rents near the university. You must be mixing her up with someone else." Tom's hand was still on my shoulder. He didn't move it. "I stayed there last fall," he said. "Remember, you showed me the kitchen you were redoing." My mother turned toward me. Her eyes weren't angry. They were uncertain. "Sweetheart," she began, slow and careful. What is he talking about? I felt my face get warm. Not from nerves. From the way the room had tilted, just slightly, like the ground wasn't as solid as everyone thought. "I rented during my postdoc." I said, "That was years ago. I bought the house in 2017. The silence came back. Heavier this time. My father shook his head once. Small. "You bought a house." "Yeah. In Tacoma Park." "Yeah." Maddie crossed her arms. The ring flashed again. Since when I thought about answering with a date, about explaining how it happened, I didn't. It's been a while. My mother pressed her lips together. Why wouldn't you tell us something like that? I did. The word landed flat, not sharp. Just there. Tom shifted his weight, sensing it. Ellie sent pictures when she moved in. He added, easy. You were traveling then, I think. My father rubbed his forehead. That neighborhood is expensive, he said, more worried than impressed. That's a lot of responsibility. I handled it. Maddie let out a breath that sounded like disbelief. This doesn't make sense. Nothing about the moment felt loud. No one raised a voice. But the air had changed. The party kept moving around us, forks clinking, someone laughing near the windows. Inside our little circle, everything stalled. We noticed how no one reached for Eleanor then. No one asked how it felt to do something hard alone. My mother stepped closer. Are you doing okay? She asked. Like I'd just admitted to something risky. I've been okay for a long time. My father nodded, still trying to place the idea. Well, that's good, I guess. Tom squeezed my shoulder once, then let go. The music swelled for a moment, covering us. I took a sip of wine. It tasted sour now. I could feel it, the thing I hadn't planned on. Not triumph, not relief, just the familiar pressure of being explained around instead of listened to. And somehow, even standing there with all of them looking at me, I still felt like I was off to the side. My mother kept staring at me, like if she looked long enough the answer might rearrange itself into something easier. Tacoma Park, she repeated softly. That's not a small place to just end up. I didn't end up there, I said. I chose it. My father folded his arms, not defensive, protective. When did this happen? Late summer, 2017. Maddie scoffed under her breath. So, you just decided to buy a house and never mentioned it. I set my glass down on the edge of the bar. It left a faint ring. I mentioned it, more than once. No one responded to that. My mother glanced at my father, then back to me. What kind of house is it? An old colonial, built in the 1920s. Needed work. My father's brow tightened. That kind of place takes upkeep. Constantly. I know. He nodded, satisfied with that concern. And the mortgage I waited a beat. I paid it off last year. Maddie laughed. Not loud. More like a release of air. That's not funny. It wasn't meant to be. The music dipped for a moment, replaced by applause from another table. Someone was making a toast. My mother flinched at the sound, then steadied herself. Eleanor, this is a lot to hear all at once. It's been my life for a while. My father leaned closer, lowering his voice. You should have asked for help. With what? With something like that, he said, gesturing vaguely, as if the house were a storm I'd walked into unprepared. I didn't need help. That landed harder than I expected. His jaw tightened. Maddie shifted her weight, the heel of her shoe scraping lightly against the floor. So you've just been handling all this, she said, on your own. Yes. We noticed how the room stayed quiet around them, how people sensed something private unfolding and stepped back without being asked. My mother touched my arm. Her hand was warm. Why wouldn't you want us to know? I looked down at her hand, then back up. I did want you to know. She pulled her hand away slowly, like she'd brushed against something fragile. You never told us it was serious. I told you I bought a house. My father exhaled, long and slow. We thought you were being aspirational. That word. I nodded once. It wasn't an idea. It was paperwork, contractors, inspections, months of it. Maddie crossed her arms again. This still feels like it came out of nowhere. It didn't, I said. It just didn't land. Someone bumped into my elbow, apologized, moved on. The party pressed forward, Indifferent. I picked up my glass again, mostly to have something to do with my hands. I could feel it settling in now. Not their surprise. The shape of their concern. Not pride. Not curiosity. Just worry. Like success was something I'd wandered into without permission. And standing there, explaining my own front door to my family, I realized how strange it was that they'd never once asked to see it. My father was still focused on the house. I could tell because that's where he stayed. Concrete things, things he could measure. "So you're still at the university?" he asked, carefully. "Or is this something else?" I took a breath. "I left the university years ago." He frowned. "You never said that." "I did." My mother stepped in quickly, smoothing things over the way she always did. "She means she's still in research," she said, half to him, half to me. "Right. Eleanor." "Yes," I said. "I'm in research." Maddie tilted her head. "So what do you actually do now?" There it was. Not curious. Evaluating. "I'm the director of translational oncology research at a biotech firm in Boston." The words hung there, waiting to be picked up. They weren't. My father blinked. "Director." "Yeah." "How many people does that mean?" "About 28? My mother's eyebrows lifted, just slightly. "You manage people." "I do." Maddie laughed once. Sharp. Since when I shrugged, since I was promoted, that didn't land either. I could feel the pressure building, the sense that I'd skipped steps they thought were required. My father rubbed his thumb against his wedding ring, a tell he'd had my whole life. "And what exactly are you researching?" he asked, broadly. "Pancreatic cancer." I said, "Drug delivery, making treatments more effective with fewer side effects." He nodded slowly, like he was trying to place it next to something familiar. "That's important." "It is." My mother smiled, relieved to have found something she could respond to. "That must be very fulfilling." "It is." We stood there for a moment. The conversation stalled again, like a car that wouldn't quite turn over. Somewhere behind us, someone dropped a fork. Someone else laughed. Life continued. We noticed how the word director didn't change their posture, how it didn't shift the balance of the room the way Maddie's ring had. Maddie broke the quiet. "You never talk about this stuff." I looked at her. I tried. She waved a hand. "You always made it sound academic." "Temporary." "It wasn't." My father's voice lowered. "Why wouldn't you tell us you were moving to Boston?" "I didn't move," I said. "I commute. I'm there part of the week." He shook his head. "That's not sustainable." "It's been sustainable for years." My mother's smile faltered. "We just worry," she said. "You've always chosen such difficult paths." That one stung. Not because it was cruel, because it was familiar. "I chose the work," I said. "The difficulty came with it." She reached for my hand, then hesitated, stopping short. "We didn't know any of this." I nodded. "I know." Maddie exhaled, impatient. "This is a lot to drop on people during a party." I glanced around the room. Balloons, champagne, a cake being wheeled past, white frosting perfect and untouched. "It's not new," I said quietly. "It's just new to you." No one responded. The space between us filled with things no one was ready to say. I stood there, feeling the weight of my own words settle, wondering how something so central to my life could sound so foreign in my own family's ears. My father shifted closer, lowering his voice like we were discussing something delicate. "And you're comfortable?" he asked. "I mean, financially." There it was. The question behind the questions. "I'm stable," I said. "Have been for a while." My mother nodded too quickly. "That's good. Stability matters." Tom stepped in before I could say anything else. "Not to take over, just to steady the ground. Ellie's been doing well," he said. "She's careful, thoughtful. That's always been her way." My father looked relieved. "Good," he repeated. "Good." Maddie tilted her head. What does that even mean, doing well? I felt the familiar pull to minimize. Old muscle memory. I earn enough to live comfortably. I save. I invest in boring things. My father pressed, still stuck on logistics. You didn't take on too much debt with the house. No, I said, I used a signing bonus when I joined the firm. $120,000. It helped reduce the principal early. My mother's eyes widened. A signing bonus? Yes, and the rest I paid it down over time. The mortgage was finished last year. The word finished seemed to echo. Maddie let out a small laugh. So you're just fine? I nodded. I'm fine. We noticed how that word landed. Fine. It smoothed everything over without changing anything. My father exhaled, satisfied now. That's what we want, he said. For you to be secure. Secure. Not proud. Not impressed. Secure? I've been secure for years. I said. My mother reached for her clutch, opened it, closed it again. We didn't realize you were this settled. I didn't respond right away. I watched someone pass with a tray of champagne flutes. Careful not to spill. Maddie adjusted her ring again. The band caught the light, bright and sharp. Tom glanced at me, a quiet check-in. I could feel the tension softening, not because anything had been resolved, but because they'd found a label they were comfortable with. Stable, settled, fine. We heard the room exhale then. The way people do when uncertainty finally gets a name. My father straightened his jacket. Well, he said, almost cheerful now, that's a relief. Something tightened in my chest. Not anger, something closer to disappointment. Yeah, I said. It is. Maddie shrugged. Guess you had it handled. I did. The music picked up again. Someone called Maddie's name from across the room. She turned, already halfway gone. My parents lingered a moment longer, smiles back in place. The worst of the surprise absorbed. I stood there watching them settle into comfort, realizing that stability had always been the bar for me, and somehow, even now, it was still low enough to step over without anyone noticing. Maddie came back a few minutes later with a drink she hadn't had before, clear, with ice. She took a long sip, then another. Her smile was gone, not replaced with anger yet. Something tighter. So, she said, glancing between me and our parents. I guess this is the part where we all pretend this isn't weird. My mother flinched. Maddie. What? She shrugged. It's weird. Eleanor shows up with a whole secret life and everyone's acting like it's normal. It's not secret, I said. It's just not performative. She laughed, sharp. You always do that. Make it sound like everyone else is shallow. My father stepped in. Voice calm. That's enough. Maddie didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on me. You know what the difference is? She set her glass down too hard. Ice clinked. You never needed anyone. You just disappeared and came back accomplished. Some of us had to do it in public. I didn't disappear. I said, I was right here. She shook her head. You were always above it, above family stuff, above needing help. My mother tried again. She didn't say that. Maddie waved her off. She doesn't have to. The words came faster now, like she'd been holding them in. So what if you're good at your job? That doesn't mean you mattered more. I felt the room tilt, not loudly, just enough. I never asked to matter more. I said, I asked to matter at all. The sentence sat between us. My father's mouth opened, then closed. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. We noticed how even the music seemed to fade for a second, how the people nearby instinctively shifted away. Maddie's face flushed. That's not fair. It's accurate. She laughed again. Brittle. You're acting like we ignored you. I'm saying you didn't notice when you did. My father's voice dropped. Maddie, stop. She finally looked at him. Why are you defending her now? I'm asking you to calm down. She turned back to me. You think this makes you better? No, I said. I think it explains why I stopped trying. Her shoulders stiffened. Trying at what? At being interesting enough to interrupt you. Silence. Thick this time. My mother reached for Maddie's arm. She pulled away. You know what? She said, backing up. Fine. You win. You're impressive. Congratulations. This isn't a competition, I said. Everything is, she snapped. You just opted out. My father took a step forward. Maddie, that's enough. She grabbed her clutch. I need air. She turned and walked toward the balcony without looking back. My mother started after her. My father caught her wrist, let her go. They stood there, shaken. Tom moved closer to me, not touching, just present. We heard the crack then. Not loud, just the sound of something long held finally giving way. I stared at the empty space Maddie had left. My heart was pounding, but my voice felt steady. I didn't come here to take anything from her. My father rubbed his face. That didn't sound like what she heard. I know. My mother's eyes were wet. Why didn't we know any of this? I looked at her. Really looked. Because every time I started, someone else needed the room. No one argued. The party noise crept back in, careful, unsure. I stood there, hands at my sides, realizing this was the moment I'd never planned for, not the reveal, the collision. And once it happened, there was no way to put everything back where it had been. After Maddie left, the space she'd been standing in stayed empty longer than it should have. My parents didn't fill it. Neither did I. We stood there, close enough to hear each other breathe, far enough that no one reached out. My mother broke first. We love you both, she said, like it was a phrase she'd practiced. We always have. I nodded once. Not in agreement, just acknowledgement. My father looked tired, older than he had an hour ago. We didn't realize you felt pushed aside. I didn't feel pushed. I said, I felt missed. That landed differently. My mother's mouth trembled. She pressed her fingers together, then apart. We never meant for that. I know. Silence again. The kind that asks for something. I took a breath. It felt steady. That surprised me. There's something I've wondered for a long time, I said, and I want to ask it now, while we're being honest. My father nodded, cautious. Okay. If I had failed, I said, keeping my voice even. Would you have noticed me then? No one answered. My mother's eyes filled. She looked down at the floor, then at her hands, like the answer might be written there. My father stared past me, jaw tight, working on something he couldn't quite shape. We noticed how the room seemed to hold still around them, how even the clinking glasses softened, as if the night knew this wasn't a moment to interrupt. I waited, not to trap them. Just to see. My father swallowed. That's not fair, he said finally. It's not cruel. I said, it's real. My mother shook her head, tears spilling now. We should have paid more attention. Yes, I said. Tom shifted beside me. Quiet. Ellie's always done her work without noise. He added, some people mistake that for not needing care. My father exhaled, long and heavy. We didn't know how far along you were. I told you what I could, I said. You stopped listening. A woman I recognized vaguely from past holidays approached, hesitated, then smiled at me. Eleanor, congratulations, she said softly. I heard about the grant in Boston. That's wonderful. I thanked her. She squeezed my arm and moved on. My mother looked at me, startled. A grant. I nodded. Yes. She covered her mouth. We don't know anything about your life. I didn't soften that moment for them. I let it sit. My father rubbed his eyes. What do you want from us now? I thought about it. Not long. I want you to understand what you missed. And then, my mother whispered. And then, I said, "We'll see." No one spoke after that. The question hung between us, unanswered, doing the work it needed to do. My mother reached for my arm this time and didn't stop herself. Her grip was light, unsure. "We want to fix this," she said. "We want to know you, really know you." My father nodded beside her. "We can start now. Come see the house. Spend time together. We don't have to miss any more." I felt something tighten, then loosen. Not relief. Something closer to clarity. I already built a life that works. I said, "I didn't wait for permission." "That's not what we mean," my mother said quickly. We don't want to be shut out." "I'm not shutting you out," I said. "I just stopped holding the door open." She flinched, but didn't pull away. My father stared at the floor, hands in his pockets. He looked smaller than he had earlier, less certain. We didn't know how. He said, "You were always so independent." I became independent because I had to. The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. My mother's eyes filled again. "Can't we try just dinner, a visit?" I paused, long enough for the music to swell and fade again, long enough for someone nearby to laugh too loudly, long enough to feel the weight of what she was asking. We noticed how this was the moment people often expect a turning point, how hope tends to lean forward right here. "I'm not saying no forever," I said. "I'm saying I won't rebuild myself around you." My father looked up. "That feels like punishment. It's a boundary." He nodded slowly, like he was trying to learn a new language. "We should have learned you sooner." "Yes," I said. A server passed with a tray of desserts. My mother waved him away without looking. Her hand trembled slightly. "We're proud of you," she said. "We should have said that before." I let that sit, not to make a point, just because it needed to land where it landed. "I hear you," I said. From across the room, someone called my parents' names. They hesitated, torn between staying and returning to the party they were hosting. "I'm going to go," I said gently. My mother nodded, reluctant. My father reached out, then stopped, letting his hand fall back to his side. As I walked away, I felt it settle in me. Not closure, not forgiveness. Just the steady understanding that wanting someone back doesn't undo the years it took them to notice you were gone. I left before the cake was cut. No announcement, no final glance back, just a slow walk through the lobby. My heels softer on the carpet than they'd been on the marble. Outside, the air felt cooler, cleaner. I sat in my car for a minute before turning the key, hands resting on the wheel, breathing until my shoulders dropped. The night didn't feel dramatic. It felt done. The drive home was quiet. Streetlights, empty stretches of road. When I pulled into my driveway, the house was dark the way I like it, calm, waiting without expectation. Inside, I kicked off my shoes by the door and turned on the small lamp in the living room. The familiar yellow light spread across the floor. My phone buzzed once, then again. My mother. My father. I set it face down on the counter and didn't feel the urge to flip it back over. I walked through the house slowly, the kitchen where I ate standing up most nights, the desk where half-finished notes waited for me, the chair by the window that I always meant to replace but never did. Nothing had changed here. That mattered. I poured a glass of water and sat at the table. For the first time that evening, my hands were steady. What surprised me wasn't relief. It was the absence of something I'd carried for so long I'd stopped noticing the weight, the need to explain, to justify, to be legible to people who had already decided who I was. Being seen, finally, hadn't fixed anything between us, but it had clarified something in me. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who waited for questions that never came, the one who kept answers ready anyway. She'd done her best with what she had, so had I. My phone buzzed again. A text from Maddie this time. Just a few words. I didn't open it. Not out of spite. Out of choice. I stood, rinsed the glass, and turned off the light. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my work, to the life that had grown quietly, without permission or applause. Eleanor Wright had built that life one ordinary decision at a time. Tonight didn't take it away. It didn't give it meaning either. It simply reminded her it was already hers. If this moment stays with you, that's enough. Sometimes reflection doesn't ask for more than that. I went upstairs, leaving the house dark, and settled behind me, and slept without waiting for anyone to call.